All right. Thank you everyone for coming. We are here for town hall with making authorities work for your library. We're going to cover just the overview of the authorities process. It is a little bit different for every vendor, but this will go through the basic steps of getting you set up with a third-party authority vendor, as well as the ongoing upkeep process, depending on who you're working with. My name is Sarah. I'm one of the educators here at ByWater. I am currently in Baltimore and excited to see you all here today. Got my fellow educators here. Katrina, I'll pass it to you.
Hey everybody, I'm Katrina Burka. I am in the DFW area for Plano, for those of you familiar with Texas. And I'm the newest educator on our team. I started with ByWater this summer. So I'm looking forward to meeting everyone and just hearing what your questions are.
And I'm Donna Bachowski, and I've been with ByWater for a few years now, and I am actually in Kentucky now. My husband and I, for those of y'all that know me, my husband and I moved up here at the end of January, so definitely loving my first fall in real fall weather. As you can also hear, my voice is not at its top, so for once, you all aren't going to have to listen to me because I'm going to mute myself for the rest of the session. So Sarah, take it away and tell us everything you know.
All right, Donna, we are always happy to hear your voice, so whatever shape it's in. I'll say once more before I get going, for anyone who got here the last minute or so, the chat is open, so if you have any questions, please feel free to jump in there. They'll most likely default to sending your chat to hosts and panelists, so if it's something that you'd like everyone to see, you can switch that to drop down to everyone so that everyone can see your question. You can also raise your hand if you would like to ask a question, and we can unmute people from here, so you'll be able to ask that way if you prefer. Please feel free to jump in at any point. All right, so the general process for working with a third-party service, it's going to depend on the service. Some of the ones that we see most often are Backstage and Marchive. Generally, we will assist with the first sort of batch of the first set of records that you work with them, and then for updates beyond that, depending on who the vendor is and your comfort level, either you can process those, or we are happy to help with that. Generally, to get started, they will want a sample of bibs. For this, it will depend on exactly what they ask for. They may ask for a sample from a variety of different item types, or they might want a random sample, your first sort of X number of bibs, or they might want a full export. This is for them to get a sense of your catalog so that they can build these new authorities. We are happy to assist at this step by creating a report that you can use to export the bibs that you'll then send to them. If they want a full export, we should definitely be the ones to do that, just so that it doesn't kind of log up your system or slow things down. If it's partial, we're happy to do that, or you can do that with our assistance for a report if needed. The service that you're working with might have specific criteria, again, for either a certain number or a variety of types that they would like. And we're happy to work with you on that to get them what they need. Typically at this stage, we will delete any authorities that are unused in your system. That's not something that we expect you to do at this stage, but for our end, just so that you kind of know what's going on. We will turn off a setting called Biblio Adds Authorities. I'll bring this up in your system preferences so you can see what this looks like. And we can talk a little bit more about these in a moment. All right, is the screen showing up for everybody? Okay, great. So Biblio adds authorities. At this stage, typically we will turn this off. And what this does is it will prevent anyone in your system from creating new authority records while you're sort of in this process of generating your cleaner authority file. We will then import your authorities that have been created by this third-party service, rebuild your authorities within Koha, link your existing bibs to your new and clean and shiny authorities, and then re-enable this Biblio adds authorities if you wish, so that you can, depending on how you want to manage creating new authorities between sort of sessions, but between updates with the vendor. Some general pieces of information to keep in mind with this. If any of your updates with either Marchive or Backstage include deleting authorities or existing authorities, that's typically better for ByWater to do. Depending on the service, they might have an option for overnight updates or monthly updates, or sort of a different schedule, but those are some of the ones we more typically see. When there are updates after that initial new file creation, if it is updates only, so after that initial creation, get my screens in order here. You are welcome to stage and import those updated authorities. That would happen right here in stage mark records. I'm just going to pick a file, so that something will go in here. So instead of the bibliographic import, staging and import, which many of you are more likely familiar with, you can also import authority records here. So once you've got that initial file, you can, once you've got that initial sort of cleanup done, any ongoing cleanup, you can import on your own here if you wish. That typically matches on the 010. But if you would prefer that we bring those updates in, we're happy to do that. And again, depending on the service that you're working with, it might be monthly or it might be less frequent depending on who it is. Anytime that you bring in an updated file here, that will update what you see on your bib. So for my record here, if this heading were updated to say humans on my next update, once that were imported, that would get updated here in my existing bib. That will either happen immediately when that new file is imported, or depending on how many bibs need to be updated with that new heading, it will happen when the merge authority cron job runs the next time that runs. Does anyone have any questions so far? Open that up. Let's see. Yeah, absolutely. Let me unmute your. There you are. Okay. Okay. All right. So you can begin to talk.
Thanks. I don't know if I'd be able to ask this typing it out. So do I understand you correctly that when you load the new authority changes, it will change what displays in the bib?
So it will update what you see here. So again, if this were like changed to humans, for instance, that would change in any of your authority controlled fields. Same, like if the author were updated.
When you load the authority record, though, So when you load the new authority records and and it says that it's changed from being human beings to humans, the bib display will change.
Not when it's loaded, when the linking is done, when the updates are done. But yes,
Oh,
yeah.
oh,
So you'll load the files, just like with staging mark records, you'll go ahead and load the files, but until you actually process them and do something, the bib records won't change until we've run, and I never get the name right, update bib cron, whatever it is. Until that's run, those new authorities will not link to those new bib records.
okay. So is it possible that we have the linking cron turned on, but not the merge cron or the update cron turned on?
You know, Sarah knows all about those, and I have to find my notes to tell you what the
Okay.
difference is, but
Okay.
I'm sure Sarah knows the difference.
Okay, good. Then I definitely want to hear more about that. Thank you.
So, okay, so you've got the merge, because there's the authority linker cron, which is the one that will look for fields in your bib that are linked to, can be linked to authorities, and that will make that link if it doesn't already exist. The authority merge cron is a cron that will, when there are changes to an existing authority record, if it's over a certain number of bibs that are affected by that change, will push that change to your bibs. And then when there are a couple different linker system preferences. So when you say the linker is on, which one were you thinking?
Oh, I only know it as linker.
That's okay. That's okay. So there's the, let's see which one there, because there's the.
So then potentially from what I'm hearing Sarah ask is, if, for instance, I'm uploading a new authority file that includes humans instead of human beings, and I have that authority system preference for the merge one to only update if there's less than 10 bib records associated with that authority. Okay. So if I have 7 bib records with human beings in it and the new authority humans is uploaded, when will that actually change in the display? I think is what Sarah's trying to get at.
Yes.
Okay. So if it's something existing, that should change as soon as the file is uploaded. It's if you've got more than that 10 or whatever you've got the system preference set to, that's where it will change the next time that the cron runs.
Okay.
So if I have that system preference set to 50 and I have 75 records that use that authority, that will not be updated until that linker update thingy cron that none of us remembers the name of runs overnight.
Yeah, and let me find that merge authorities preference here. So this is that system preference where you would set that number. So I guess that's when modifying an authority record. And so this would also apply if you went into your existing authority file and changed that from human being to humans, like right from Koha. If there's only 3 records, 3 bibs that have that authority, that should update when the change is made. If you've got more than the 50, it will update when that merge authority cron job next runs.
Okay.
It's not a very well named cron job, unfortunately, because it's not actually merging anything. It's really the way that I think of it is sort of merging the changes in the authorities into your bibs, but authorities themselves are not merging with this cron job. It's kind of bringing those changes, making those changes reflect in your bibs.
Okay. This actually is the best thing I have learned in weeks. So thank you.
Oh, good, good. I'm glad. Any other questions so far about the process? Okay. Well, rearrange some windows here. So some other pieces to keep in mind then. So some of the relevant system preferences that we've got with this. So we've talked about this one. The biblio adds authorities that I mentioned before, during the sort of process of generating that new authority file, we'll typically set this to don't allow, so that things do not get, so that records do not get sort of messy in that sort of interim between when you send them to your vendor and when they come back. What this does, and there are sort of different options for these two, once you've got your new file and you want to, thinking about how to keep your authorities clean between updates. So what biblio adds authorities does. So right now, close this. Right now, all right. So because right now I've got biblio adds authorities set to allow, what that means is I can go into either a new record or an existing record and type whatever I would like in an authority controlled field. If I were to set this to don't allow, I'll bring in here. These are now locked, and I can't just go ahead and type in them. So if I needed to create, oh, actually that didn't, let me see here. Okay, so when that is set to don't allow, you won't just be able to go in and type free text into new records. What you would need to do, so here, for instance, is you would need to click on this widget, and this will bring you to your current authority file so that you can search for an existing authority. And if you do not have one, you can create one from there. So when you are between updates with your vendor, this is one of the decisions you want to make as far as how you want to set things. So if you will want people or your catalogers to be able to type something directly in this box, if there's not an existing authority, that biblio adds authorities would need to be set to allow. Or if it is not, then again, they'll need to click on this widget here, which will bring up a window where you can search your authorities. And if one does not exist that you want to link to, you would select, you could create one straight from there. Okay. Let's make this back over. The second system preference I'm going to take a look at. So with biblio adds authorities back to allow, if I wanted to go ahead and type in a new authority here, I could do that. The second one that really only comes into play once or when you have biblio adds authorities set to allow is auto create authorities. And what this does is when it is set to when it's set to generate any free text that you type into this field, if there's not an existing match to an authority, it will create that as a machine generated authority. So what many libraries prefer to do if they're working with a vendor, want to keep their authority files clean, is have this set to don't generate. And what will happen with the authority cleanup process then, if this is set to allow, so for instance, if I type in New York here, when the first step will be that the authority linker cron job will attempt to look for an authority that matches that it will make that link if it does exist. But if it does not exist, the next time that you send an update to your third-party vendor, they will build authorities or update your authority file based on the updated information that you've sent them. So at that point, any links for bibs that have been either changed or created since your initial authority file was created, those links will be established if they are entirely new authorities when you do that update with your vendor. One of the examples here I want to look at. So for this authority, for instance, or this not formal authority. So for this record, we've got these two terms are authorities. So what this 9 here means is that it is in our authority file. This is not in the authority file, so it will serve as, it will still be searchable as a subject or keyword search, but it will not be linked to any authority file. And the way that that shows up, if I look in the record here, so they're all going to show up here as subjects, but this one, if you look at the link preview down at the bottom when I hover over it, you can see it's trying to do a subject search for that term. Whereas these two, since they are authorities, they've got that magnifying glass next to them. And there is a system preference, since that is an option when you do have an authority file in good shape, where instead of searching for a subject, this can search for your authority number. So the link preview here is showing the authority number 3. So instead of doing a subject or keyword search for human beings, if I click on this, it's going to search for only records linked to that authority. So it can be a little bit more precise, but it is best to use if you're pretty confident that your authority file is in good shape and that your bibs are linked, up to date with being linked to those authorities. The other piece I wanted to show you in here for creating your editing file or bibs in between updates with your vendor. So we saw here that this term is not an authority in the system. And one of the really nice things that came out with one of the recent updates was this link authorities automatically button. And what this will do, so this is great, especially when you've got a new record that you're just entering in your system. Since this record is already in here, it's already got some links, but can still demonstrate. So what this button will do is it will perform the same process that the linker cron will do of trying to match any of these authority controlled fields to your authority files. So, but you can basically do it in real time so that you'll know what matches and what doesn't. And if you want to create an authority at that moment, you can go ahead and do that. So if I click this link authorities automatically, this one will show up in red, just highlighting that there's no authority in my database for this term. So I can go ahead and click on this to create one. It gives you that nice little button to do that right from here if I wish. But then the other one that came up was for my author, and we've got that there is a matching authority found. So what that did was it added, this was an existing authority record, but it was not linked. So what clicking that button did was make that link between this authority controlled field and my authority file. This is the sort of link that would happen with the linker cron later on, but this is nice because you can see right away what links up and what doesn't, so that you can get it linked sooner and also know what changes what manual authorities you might want to create for this bib. Does anyone have any questions about those or anything else about that process of working with your authorities between cleanups with your vendor? All right, in that case, does anyone have any other authorities questions? Yes, Donna.
Can I stir the pot?
Please.
Why would I want to spend my time working on authorities? What's the point?
So it's going to depend on your patrons. If your patrons are going to be looking for, like, especially if it's an academic or research library, if they're going to want something that is very specific to their terms, that any searches that they would do, if you want to make, yes, I'll take a look at that question in a moment. If your patrons are more likely to want that level of specificity when they are searching for items, bibs and items in your catalog, authorities are great for that. If many libraries will not work with authorities because their patrons will tend to be just as happy with a subject search. It really depends on whether they'll want to be able to click through things here and find things that are specifically about this term versus doing a subject search for whatever term they're looking for.
And it doesn't make you a bad library if you don't use authorities, right?
No, not at all.
One thing I
No.
want people to understand is, like, it just seems like, do I have to use authorities? And the answer is no, you don't. It, like Sarah said, it makes perfect sense for a lot of libraries to use them, but for a lot of libraries, it makes perfect sense not to use them too. So
Yeah.
awesome,
Yeah.
thank you. And you answered it much nicer than I would, because y'all know I'm anti-authority. So we do have two questions that have come in. So the first one is, can you show us what matching rules you choose for an authority's import profile? So really good question.
All right, so this is not an authorities file, so it will not work to actually import this. But for this, so we don't even have the rules set up in here. Typically for this, so we'll most commonly want to match on the 010. And then as far as record matching rules for this, I may actually, and if, so we have Annika in the audience from the data team. So if you have anything that you want to add, Annika, please feel free to jump in, but if not, that's totally fine. But in general, so it would be a rule to match on the 010 here. So you'd have that. And assuming that they are, that your vendor is bringing in, is not getting rid of any information in your authority record that you would want to have there, you could replace that record. You wouldn't want to add the incoming record for any update, because that would defeat the purpose. So replacing that record would be the match, would be the rule to use there. The overlay rules, I would honestly have to take a look and see how the overlay rules cooperate with authorities. But my understanding is that you could choose to protect certain fields in your authority files using those overlay protection rules if you needed to. But otherwise, as long as your vendor is just updating and kind of cleaning things up, you should just be able to replace them. And same with Donna and Katrina. If there's any pieces that I've missed here, please feel free to.
Well, I
jump
was
in.
just going to say, when we do have some more questions coming in too, but I was just going to say with those matching rules, I know one of the things some libraries are doing is they're having the vendor put an annotation or something in an unused mark field and use that as part of their matching. And so that kind of helps with some of that sort of thing too. So it wouldn't be just necessarily, I always get this wrong, 010, 000, whatever it is. It wouldn't be just that control field. There, you could also have a second matching rule of saying, and look for blah, blah tag also, right?
Yeah, we can set up as many kind of pieces of that matching rule as necessary, depending on what your vendor needs to happen.
Okay, next question up is what happens when you import a MARC bib record using a service? Now, Juliet, do you mean something like if you're importing a MARC bib record from like Baker and Taylor or Ingram or something like that? Let's presume that's what she means. And that's kind of what you were talking about, Sarah, too, with when you bring that in, depending on what fields are in there. Yeah, so what happens with the authorities then? So like Sarah had mentioned, unless they are being overwritten, well, no, that's not necessarily true.
So if you import a MARC bib using, when you say a service, yeah, I guess it depends on what sort of service you mean, but if it's, well, actually, let me see.
She meant, yeah, like
Okay.
or something like that, yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, Donnie, I missed what you said.
Or like Baker and Taylor getting it from
Okay.
a third-party service. If they don't have those authorities in their record, which they're not going to, how do we handle the authorities here?
So or if they're coming in with subjects, then those would link when the linker next runs if they do match anything in your authority file. If they don't, then they would just kind of remain as subject searches. So, if someone did a subject search for, if this were the only subject in this new record, if someone did a subject search for this, it would come up as a keyword or subject search. It just wouldn't be an authority. Unless I went in and created it, or until the next update with a third-party service. And at that point, they would create new authorities for any, as needed for any new bibs in your system. Then those would get brought in, and then they would get linked when the linker next ran after you brought in that newest authority file.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Sarah says she has really small delete files from Backstage, about 30 records. Should I still have you folks delete those? We're always happy to do that, Sarah, you know that. And related, how do I unlink these before I delete them? I just delete things, but I don't know that that's always the best way. I don't think we need to unlink before we delete, because once that authority record is gone, it's going to automatically pull that link, right?
I know that the data team will delete them, but when it is like there's an unlinker sort of process that they can run.
So Annika, let's have you jump in.
I think,
Yeah. So you did say 30 records. Is that authority or is that
yeah, 30 authority records.
Authority records. You don't need to unlink them. So if you're importing them from if you're importing them from the staff client, you'll be using the stage. So you'll be using a matching rule. So once you have that matching rule set up, if the authorities in those 30 records found a match, then it's kind of like just going back to what Sarah said about when the merge as well as the blinker cron would run, and then you would just update. Does that answer your question?
I think the key part of it is you don't have to unlink, Sarah, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just delete it and it's gone.
You don't need to unlink it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Annika.
Yes,
Okay. So how do you manage blind authorities? That is an authority record that is no longer linked to any existing bib. So I have an authority, but that one bib record that was attached to is now gone. What happens with that bib, Sarah? Do I have any options there?
So it depends on when you're doing this. If it's your first, go around with your third-party service, and ByWater is assisting with that, then deleting that unused authority will be part of what we do when we get that initial file set up for you. Beyond that, there are reports that can assist with deleting authorities, and there's also a plugin, I believe, although
we kind of say leave the plug-in for when you need a sledgehammer for your.
wait, okay, all right, I haven't.
Kind of a big one, which we are more than happy to show y'all if we do that one. But that was actually leading into Sarah's follow-up question is, can you talk about the linker keep stale system preference? That's one that I was teasingly alluding to.
All right, so yes, that one. So linker keeps stale. So what linker keep stale should do, get back to that. So linker keep stale should, if there is a link, if there is an authority in, or a link to an authority in one of your bibs that is no longer valid, linker keep stale will, oops. Oh goodness, we're having technical issues over here. Linker keep stale can be set to either keep that link to that no longer existing authority, or to get rid of that link once it doesn't exist anymore. And I know actually that we've got, no, I have a ticket actually about this in my inbox, and I'm wondering if it is related to this. So essentially linker keep stale will either keep the existing link to an authority record when there is no longer a match, or it will clear that link out once the match is no longer there. It is you, okay. All right, how does it work with other system preferences? Is there another specific system preference that you are, okay. Does it have to work? Does it have to have link or relink turn on to work? Nope. I would have to check on that to see how that goes. Donna or Annika or Katrina, if you have seen that particular combination in action and you have the info right away.
Say no, because authorities scare me, so I try not to touch things in there. But that is something to kind of, that we'll take a look at it.
Yeah,
she's seen it in action.
Yeah.
But that's something that we'll definitely note down and take a look and see, because it's a really good question. I'm making assumptions right now, so I don't want to say anything, because I just presumed you would have to, but I don't know now. The less we talk about this, the less confident I am. So we'll follow up with that one. But hopefully that answers the questions between Lori and Sarah of, you can keep the authorities in there, even if they don't have a link to an existing bib. That is kind of where that relinker will come in, is that if they have, and I might just be making this up too, but it sounds really good, is that the next time that runs, it will go ahead and attach any bibs to those authorities. So you don't necessarily need to get rid of an authority just because you don't have a record associated with it, but that all kind of works together with those. So you can leave those in there if you want to. I see a question in here from, okay, so Teresa was asking about using an authority record control number. So yeah, we could match on those as long as we know what that field is. We can set up the matching rule with that one. Liquor keep stale.
Got one at
Oh,
the
and
bottom.
Annika says I'm actually right for once. Yay. But if you don't want them in there, if you want to delete all blind authorities, so probably the easiest thing for that is letting us set up a report for you, and we can have that croned to you on a regular basis and just emailed to you and say, hey, here's all of your authorities that don't have any records in them. And then you can go ahead and delete those however you want to.
Yeah, and we can also, and this is less likely to be an issue if you're using a third-party service, but we can have reports that look for potential duplicate authorities if you want to go in occasionally and check for anything that you want to merge. Again, less likely once you're using one of these services.
And actually, Sarah, that's Juliet's next question is it
Yeah.
possible to clean up authorities without using an outside service? Can you delete blind authorities and merge existing ones yourselves? Absolutely. We will want to set up some reports with you, and we'll probably want to have a conversation about kind of some workflows and best ways to do that. But we're happy to work with you all on that one, but you absolutely can do it yourself if you want to. Or if you want, just delete all your authorities and start from scratch. Or not, just delete all your authorities and be done with it.
Yeah, what you can do if you do want to start from scratch is, like Donna said, delete all of them and then have us rebuild them. And then that will, if there's anything that was an authority 5 years ago and no longer is, it would at least get rid of that sort of thing. So it would build authorities based on your catalog as it is in the moment. You still might need to do some cleanup, especially things like merging, but that would at least get rid of a lot of the things that might not have any bibs attached anymore or be linked to any bibs. So I'm going to stop the share for now, but please keep on asking questions if you have any. Any other questions? Any other questions about anything authority or about this process? Donna, Katrina, Annika, if there's anything that you would want to add that I haven't, is there a reason to leave the limit to 50? I know that at a certain point, I believe that's for kind of system resource reasons, but I honestly do not know what the sort of recommended limit, if it's not 50, would be for that merge authority limit. I don't know if there is, I have not seen the point where it starts to tax systems, but I'm sure that it exists.
Ooh, Sarah asked a really good question, and this may be something Annika can answer. Can you do a report to show records that have authorities linked to less than 50? Should be able to, because it would just be select the authority and show how many records it's linked to, right? Seems doable.
I think so.
It is a little tricky to find, like to create a report. It is possible, but it's very tricky to create like an accurate report that finds like how many things are linked to this particular authority record, just because the link to that authority is in the MARC data itself. It's not like with the schema, with the issue ID and all that stuff, it's in the MARC tag. So that is what makes it a little tricky. But we love a good challenge, so do submit a ticket if that ever comes up.
But we could also, working on an individual authority, that would be fairly straightforward because it would just be in an authority search and it would show you how many records are attached to it, right? It's just more if you want a broader scope. Yeah. Yeah, find those small ones that have not had their subjects merged. Yeah. Sarah, sounds like you need to open a ticket for reports and say, hey, Annika, you said you could do this. Maybe.
Any other questions that anyone has or anything? Okay. All right, well, if there are not any other questions, we will end the session. Oh, how do we get the cron set up? Submit a ticket. for that. Yep. 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 And if there are, if you have the names of the crons, feel free to put those in the ticket. If not, if you tell us what it is that you want to do, we'll be able to confirm which crons it is with you from the ticket, and we can go from there.
And then I would just say, as a, to everyone that's listening today or at any point, we're really looking to try and do more of these town halls where it's not necessarily a lecture, but more of a, hey, how are you using it, conversation sort of thing. So please let us know what suggestions you have, what topics you might be interested in doing. We do have another one next month on ILL. There is the Koha to Koha ILL functionality that is trying to be used a little bit more. So we're going to be kind of exploring through that. But please let us know if there's any sort of other topics that you'd be interested in doing this with. Because we love having these conversations with you and having multiple people in the room. It definitely adds a little bit more spark to it and gets some really good questions going. So thank you, Sarah. You make me feel a whole lot better about authorities. I don't know about anyone else, but I feel a lot better.
Good. Hope it was everyone got their questions answered. If any other questions do come up, please send us a ticket and we'll be happy to work on it with you. And we will hopefully see you at the next town hall. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.